truly abnormal. That's the appropriate description following tonight's executive remarks. An agitated, scattered, yelling explosion disguised as official discourse. It failed to meet the standard of legitimate speech, considering how often fundamental articulation ability completely broke down, leaving only shouting and garbled sounds. This utter confusion perfectly demonstrates the collapsing nightmare characterizing this presidency and the mounting nervousness throughout the executive branch.
There has never, frankly, been anything like it. 1 year ago, our country was dead. We were absolutely dead. Our country was ready to fail, totally failed. Now, we're the hottest country anywhere in the world, and that's said by every...
Well, my favorite word is tariffs, and quite frankly, we say they're tariffs. And do you know what tariffs have done? They've destroyed farmers all across this country. They've jacked up prices.
What a bizarre display. That's the immediate reaction anyone would have after witnessing the address delivered this evening. An unhinged, chaotic, shouting breakdown masquerading as presidential communication. This wasn't proper discourse. Multiple instances occurred where coherent language simply vanished, replaced by yelling and incomprehensible outbursts. The complete chaos perfectly illustrates the crumbling catastrophe defining this administration and the widespread alarm permeating the executive branch. Let me start where he started, complaining, which remains his sole capability aside from losing command of basic speech. 11 months back, I supposedly received a disaster, and now I'm repairing it. Upon assuming power, price increases were allegedly the most severe in 48 years. Some claim throughout our nation's entire history, causing expenses to reach unprecedented heights, rendering existence unaffordable for countless American families. This display is just pitiful. Can we begin there? There's plenty to address regarding everything he attempted to express tonight and every falsehood he presented, but can we simply acknowledge that fundamental reality? The nation's chief executive is primarily just pitiful. He's a complaining infant who has never accepted responsibility throughout his existence. He's a military service dodger who repeatedly received rescue after rescue. He didn't achieve billionaire status through understanding prosperity's secrets. He became wealthy through repeated bailouts, and that's precisely what his governance represents, rescuing his associates who defraud us, who deceive us, who damage us. And claiming he constructed some magnificent economy is completely false. Reality shows we're all suffering due to his leadership. The sole beneficiaries comprise approximately 15 wealthy individuals in his extended family, making this deception seem absolutely absurd. He boasts that more individuals have employment currently than during any period in American history, and supposedly 100% of positions created during his tenure originated in private enterprise. Consider that claim. Every single position allegedly emerged from private business rather than government employment, which he presents as the exclusive method to achieve national strength and excellence. This supposed historical pattern will allegedly persist. Already, he's supposedly secured unprecedented amounts, $18 trillion worth of investment flowing into the United States, representing employment opportunities and salary growth. Does he actually comprehend how employment functions? Does he grasp what he's articulating? It's challenging to believe most of this isn't written on prepared notes. The reality that he cannot successfully deliver even these scripted lines demonstrates the mental deterioration this individual experiences, combined with his constant shouting throughout the entire presentation. Even during moments where he malfunctioned, the yelling continued because he understands his situation. His government faces serious trouble. Dan Benigno had to step down today because Friday brings something significant. The Epstein documents become public. Circumstances will only deteriorate further, explaining his increasing fury. That's precisely what occurred immediately before he completely lost verbal capacity. He then discusses national security benefits supposedly accomplished through import duties. His preferred terminology, import duties, which foreign nations allegedly employed successfully against us for numerous decades but supposedly no longer. Businesses understand that domestic construction eliminates import duties. That's allegedly why they're returning to America in unprecedented quantities. They're supposedly constructing manufacturing facilities at levels previously unseen. Artificial intelligence, automotive production were supposedly achieving things nobody considered remotely feasible. Nothing comparable has ever existed, frankly. 12 months ago, our nation was supposedly finished. We were completely finished. Our country was allegedly prepared to collapse, totally collapsed. Currently, we're supposedly the most desirable nation anywhere globally, and that's reportedly acknowledged by everyone. Well, my preferred terminology is import duties. And honestly, these so-called import duties, do you understand their actual impact? They've devastated agricultural producers throughout this nation. They've inflated costs on every conceivable product. That's the genuine effect of import duties. Your preferred terminology is import duties because it represents the optimal instrument for operating your corrupt scheme and pressuring international leaders for a decorative award and fast food. Meanwhile, everyone else suffers. It's how market manipulation occurs, so you and all your associates and relatives can engage in insider trading. So please spare me the import duty discussion. Also, spare me the pharmaceutical cost reductions you're supposedly achieving through impossible mathematical figures. He claims direct negotiations with pharmaceutical corporations and foreign governments that supposedly exploited our country for many decades to reduce medication and pharmaceutical costs by amounts reaching 400, 500, even 600%. In other words, medication expenses will supposedly plummet downward, and he employed the threat of import duties. Has nobody in this government explained basic mathematics to him? Does he comprehend what declining by 600% actually means? Once again, he's reading prepared notes and executing that task poorly, but those numbers simply don't function logically. Does he actually understand? He literally cannot articulate properly. Those aren't legitimate words conveying actual meaning. They're simply confused nonsense. They're fabrications. The situation became especially problematic when he started malfunctioning at this particular moment. That portion just extracted wealth from citizens, and him that portion, genuinely, I suppose the medication, that's his actual sound. The medication clearly wasn't activating when necessary. I believe he consumes substantial amounts of stimulant medication. I know his advisor describes the disposition of someone with alcohol dependency without actual drinking, which essentially makes him just that, a perfect characterization, but he certainly consumes significant stimulant medication. And they presumably administered that vitamin injection immediately beforehand, and it failed to produce a capable performance. Not that such a thing exists. A capable version of him represents a contradiction, but once again, it definitely agitated him. There was tremendous shouting and fury. It didn't enable proper speech as we witnessed. But it certainly generated anger, and that's why he proceeded as he always does, directing hostile sentiments toward people of color. His preferred approach involves blaming housing expense increases on the massive border intrusion. We've never experienced invasion. This represents the most terrible thing the previous government supposedly inflicted upon our nation, according to him, the border intrusion. The former government and their congressional supporters allegedly admitted countless migrants and provided them government-funded housing while your rental and housing expenses skyrocketed. Supposedly over 60% of rental market expansion originated from foreign migrants. Simultaneously, undocumented individuals allegedly stole American employment and overwhelmed emergency facilities, receiving complimentary medical treatment and education funded by American taxpayers. They also supposedly increased law enforcement expenses by amounts too substantial to mention. For the first occasion in 50 years, we're supposedly witnessing reverse migration as migrants return home, leaving additional housing and employment for Americans. During the year preceding his election, all employment creation supposedly went to foreign migrants. Since assuming office, supposedly 100% of employment creation benefited native-born citizens. It's not the border issue. Can we establish that clearly? It's not the border. It's not the immigrants performing labor that nobody else domestically desires at compensation levels that shouldn't exist legally, that aren't legal. Cash payments who contribute $100 billion annually in various taxes, payroll contributions, retirement funds, healthcare programs, unemployment coverage that they never receive benefits from. They're actually subsidizing us. In reality, perhaps it's the technology billionaires who desire artificial intelligence to replace you. The technology billionaires who don't believe you deserve uncontaminated drinking water but desire redirecting all our uncontaminated water toward data facilities. Perhaps those individuals bear responsibility. Perhaps those individuals make existence worse. Perhaps those individuals whom he has permitted to operate without restraint genuinely make America worse. Perhaps it's not the immigrants. Have we considered that perspective? Well, Congresswoman Crockett certainly expressed that viewpoint forcefully. The current president has clearly demonstrated that he exclusively opposes legitimate immigration when non-European individuals seek entry to the United States. His immigration policies aren't about protecting citizens or maintaining economic stability or preserving employment. It concerns prejudice. It demonstrated prejudice during his initial term. It demonstrates prejudice currently. And similar to his initial term, he's employed numerous prejudiced individuals to implement it. Actually, I'll pause briefly. I understand we're discussing temporary protected status, but I'm uncertain if anyone else has highlighted the reality that immigration enforcement agents literally dragged an expectant mother just this week in a circulated recording. So don't suggest this isn't about inflicting suffering, because it absolutely is. Continuing forward, the president has been documented describing predominantly African and Latin American nations as terrible places. He consistently characterizes African and Latin American individuals as possessing low intelligence, being foolish or unpleasant. His policies focus on one objective: providing ethnic preference to particular individuals seeking American immigration, which violates laws and constitutional principles. But regardless, they'll continue attempting to convince everyone that immigrants cause all your difficulties. But here's reality. Immigrants aren't responsible for a wealthy executive declining to increase your compensation. The corporation employing you isn't replacing your position with artificial intelligence because of Caribbean refugees. Your property owner isn't raising your rental payment because someone escaping criminal violence in Central America relocated to your neighborhood. A Middle Eastern student receiving educational funding to attend an American university isn't responsible for your child's tuition increasing. Latin American agricultural laborers aren't responsible for your grocery expense increases. Let's be clear, blaming migrants and deporting migrants and terminating temporary protected status won't enhance most Americans' existence. As you can observe, we're experiencing the largest, most brutal deportation operation in American history. And guess the outcome? Housing remains unaffordable. Medical treatment remains excessively expensive. Groceries remain excessively expensive. Salaries aren't matching price increases. Employment continues being sent overseas. So perhaps it's not the immigrants, perhaps it's the unsuccessful conservative policies. In Texas, conservatives control the state legislature, both chambers and the governor's office. Nationally, conservatives control both congressional chambers and the presidency. Perhaps it's because conservatives prefer providing permanent tax reductions to billionaires, but refuse even providing middle-income Americans temporary medical care benefits. Perhaps it's because the current president assembled the wealthiest cabinet in American history, and these individuals lack connection with ordinary Americans. Please allow us to challenge this deception. Please allow us to challenge this deception. We require additional uncompromising progressive representatives like Congresswoman Crockett to do precisely that and declare, examine the oligarchs. Examine the billionaires desiring to control your existence, who desire surveilling you, who desire capturing all your information, all your attention. If they're not forcing you to labor for inadequate compensation, they're consuming all your hours through their algorithms on various social platforms, which they currently desire owning, so you cannot witness the destruction in conflict zones. That's their actual objective. Perhaps let's discuss them instead of immigrants, and let's expose the current president.